This is an On the Ice and Behind the Benches podcast on the Sports for Beginners podcast feed. Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. Blue Jays, Pirates, Bucco fans, Blue Jay fans, it's time for the finish line. This is Blue Jays game recap. Buccos, Jays, lights up, let's go. On the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Well. So we've reached the end of the first of this 6-game road swing between the Toronto Blue Jays, road team opponents, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and coming up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is the 3-game series between the Miami Marlins and the Toronto Blue Jays. Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Blue Jays game recap studio on Sports for Beginners and, of course, on the ice and behind the benches. My name is Thomas. Please call me Thomas. I know I've said my last name in the last couple of recaps, but welcome to the show wherever you may be listening, whether it's in Japan, in which case, konnichiwa to those of you in Japan. And then, of course, those of us in France, Paris, London, everywhere in between. Welcome. Bienvenue for those of us in the regions of Paris, France, and everywhere else in France that speaks French, including Quebec, and so on. We've got a great show for you today that features the Pirates and the Blue Jays as we wrap up this 3-game series, part of a 6-game homestand. And there's just so much to get to. I know I said homestand, but I'm referring to the road stand. There's so much to get to and so little time to waste. Let's dive right in to all of the action, starting with game 1 of this double dose. Game 2 of the 3-game series between the two teams. You see behind me the Pirates and the Blue Jays. Now, the Blue Jays found a way to come back and even the series. But what was the pitching matchup? Well, it was Mitch Keller versus Mad Max, as we Blue Jay fans like to call him. But he's otherwise known as Scherzer, who at the time of this start was 3-2, 5-11 record for Mitch Keller, and 4-2 for Mad Max Scherzer. Of course, I mean to say 3-2 with the record. Of course, there's records. So it's 3-2 Max Scherzer and 5-11 Mitch Keller. Those are the records to look at in this pitching matchup in which John Schneider and Don Kelly line up like this. Start with Don Kelly's Pirates, team manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And according to our lineup card, the Blue Jays would see in left field, center field, and right field. Brian Reynolds will be in right field. Simon will be in left field for this ball game. Andrew McCutchen is the designated hitter. And look out. Here comes the right fielder, Jack Jack Suwinski, or Jack S for short. He comes in to play right field. I should say center field. Your infield for the Pirates looks like this. Blue Jays fans in game 2 of this 3-game series. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, or IKF for short, plays third base. Jared T is your shortstop. In the catching mitt of Mitch Keller, we have Joey Bart wearing number 14. Your second baseman is Nick Gonzalez, and Spencer Horwitz, former Blue Jay just like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, or of course IKF, is how the Blue Jays would line up for this game, in which the Blue Jays came into the game at a record 73 wins and 53 losses. 73-53 was the record for the Blue Jays, having lost to the Pirates in game 1 of this series by a big margin. It was actually just a small margin. It was a 5-2 Pirates win over the Blue Jays. But nonetheless, they would send out Mad Max Scherzer, or obviously known as Max Scherzer. And the Pirates would send out, well, Mitch Keller for game 2 of this matchup. Speaking of Max Scherzer and the Blue Jays, defensively for the Blue Jays, John Schneider lines up the Blue Jays like this. Blue Jays fans, George Springer, the designated hitter. He will play with the designated hitter of the Pirates, Andrew McCutchen. In right field, center field, and left field, we have, for the Blue Jays, Miles Straw is in center field. In right field, we have Addison Barger. We have in left, Nathan Lukes. Andres G, Ernie Clement would be at second and third base. And of course, Alejandro Kirk would be catching, with Bo Bichette at shortstop and Ty France at first base. Thomas, where is Vladdy in all this? Well, so I know a lot of us are asking that question, and I'm going to dive into what we probably know if we were listening, watching, or even viewing the game in low volume for game number 1. I'm going to dive into a little bit of what had been going on when it comes to Vladdy Guerrero Jr. So let's get right into it. You've seen the lineups, you've seen the pitching matchup. Let's get right down to business with the first ever score line. And this is, of course, game number 2 of a 3-game series. Mitch Keller, Max Scherzer, the pitching matchup. Who's going to win the game? Who's going to lose the game? Let's take a look-see at our line score. For the Blue Jays, line score looks like this: 7 runs, 10 hits, 1 error in the ball game. That's, of course, their 4th straight error in this series against the Pirates, as they did not make probably an error in the 3rd game of this series. The Pirates will only make 1 error in this series, as they did not make a single error in game 1 of this 3-game series, which of course was the opener back on Monday in PNC Park, and they of course won that game 5-2, leaving the Blue Jays with a chance to even the series. It looks like they did even the series. Speaking of the Pirates, not only did they commit 1 error, but they had 3 runs and 8 hits to come out of that. All right, you love it, I love it. It is time to figure out how this all came to be. How did the Blue Jays and the Pirates create a 7-3 final score after the Blue Jays lost the first meeting against the Pirates by a score of 5-2? Well, let's take a look. And once again, the winning pitcher for that match was Evan S. Yariel Rodriguez lost that match. He is at a record of 2-1. And Dennis Santana, his record remains at 4-4 with his 8th save of the season. Evan S., his record right now, heading into his next start. 73 Pirates, hoping to take 2 out of 3 in this series with a chance to clear the series and the Blue Jays denied the chances. Therefore, they are 74-53 heading into game number 3 of this series, the series finale. But how did they do it? Well, let's have us a look-see. We begin the scoring and the entire ball game in the top of the first inning, in which the Blue Jays score 3 runs, one on a single by Alejandro Kirk to score 1 run. Addison Barger goes to third base, Bo Bichette to second base, and the one to score would be, of course, George Springer. However, Alejandro Kirk would be thrown out at second. Nathan Lukes singles on a ground ball into center fielder Jack S. Addison Barger will score, and so will Bo Bichette. And the Blue Jays, as I mentioned, they scored 3 runs in this ball game. It's top of the first inning. They are now up 3-0 on the Pirates. Top of the second inning. Blue Jays love being up 3-0, but you know what will be great is if they got it to a huge lead, and they did, thanks to the 20th homer of the season off the bat of Springer, dinger, George Springer. A fly ball right in the center field, Miles Straw and George Springer score. It's now a 5-run Blue Jay lead over the Pirates. 5 Jays, second inning. Bottom of the second inning. This lead's going to get cut to 4 now for the Blue Jays as Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, although grounds out to Ernie Clement, the first baseman, IKF is able to make sure we drive in a run for the Pirates as Andrew McCutchen scores. Joey Bart will go to second base and Jack S. will go into third base. And the Pirates are now on the board. It is 5-1 Blue Jays over the Buccos. Top of the 7th inning. Alejandro Kirk says, hey, Springer's hitting homers. I can hit that too. He has 9 home runs on the season right now. Will he get 10 against the Pirates in game 2 of this series? Yes, he will. It's a fly ball right center field, not just in center field, but it's in right center field to be exact. That will score Bo Bichette and Alejandro Kirk's another 2-run shot as George Springer provided in the top of the second inning. The 5-run lead for the Blue Jays. And now with the Blue Jays up 7-1 over the Pirates, it's now a 6-run ball game as they not only got their 5-run lead back, but they also brought in an extra run, and now it's 6-run lead for the Blue Jays, with it being 7-1 in favor of the Blue Jays. Bottom of the 7th inning, Ronnie Simon. I didn't say Ronnie's first name the last time, and I hope I'm saying that right, but he, as Simon, makes a sacrifice fly to Addison Barger, the right fielder. Joey Bart will score, and Jared T will go to base. So it was a runners at the corner kind of play. Perhaps Joey Bart was already on third, and Jared was on second base. Therefore, he got advanced to second. Anywho, you slice it. With it now being a 6-run lead, it's now been cut back to a 2-run lead, of which the Pirates are still down. However, what went from a 6-run lead after a 5-run lead before the Pirates first got on the board, it is now back to a 5-run lead, with it now being 7-2 Pirates losing to the Blue Jays. And in the bottom of the 8th, try as you might, but you will get it close to at least a more fair ball game. And that, of course, will be the 3rd run the Pirates score. It's on a Jack S. single on a line drive into right field, Addison Barger. Nick Gonzalez at third base. He will score, and the Blue Jays will come out to win by 4 runs. A final score of 7-3. So they'll even the series, the winning series for the Pirates, with it being 74 Blue Jay record, going 74th loss of the season. Now, we're going to take a break on Blue Jays game recap, but before we do, here's what's coming up. We will dive in to the action in the series finale that went down in terms of the standings for our American League and National League standings update. We will get to both players of the game top performers, including game 2's top performers and player of the game before we dive into game 3's breakdown when we come back. Plus, we'll dive in to the series so far in a nutshell. So plenty more to come here on Blue Jays Game Recap. Stay right with us. You're listening to Blue Jays Baseball on Sports for Beginners and On the Ice and Behind the Benches. It's the recap show on the ice and behind the benches and Sports for Beginner. And we'll be right back after these. Don't worry, we're not done yet.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down. Nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Well. Welcome back into the studio, Blue Jays fans, and of course, Bucko fans. It's the Blue Jays are on the right side of me. On the left side, we have the Pirates side. And of course, we are currently breaking down the third game and second game of this 3-game series. Of course, the Blue Jays taking a win out of game number 2 in this 3-game series. They even the series at 1 game apiece, which means it's time to figure out who exactly wins the rubber match of this 3-game series and the series in depth in general. So the rubber match we'll get to momentarily by breaking it down. We have the players of the game and the top performers to get to for game number 2. But before we break down that, let's dive in to game 3's starting line defensively for the previous pitchers in this game, as you probably are tuning into the Pirates and Blue Jays' next matchups. When you hear this, the pitching matchups are as follows. For the Pirates, who at this point in time, with the loss to the Blue Jays, were 53 and 74. The Blue Jays, well, they were 74 and 53 with the even series. Of course, this was the ungodly start time at 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time. 12:35 p.m. Eastern Time, I should say. 11:35 a.m. Central. 10:35 a.m. Mountain. 9:35 a.m. Pacific. If you were in London and Paris, it wasn't at an ungodly start time, but it was 5:35 p.m. London time and 6:35 p.m. Paris time. For those of you who love night games in London and Paris, that was the time the Blue Jays and Pirates were underway. Why did I say the ungodly start time? Well, I'm kind of picking off of what Jeff Belair on Blue Jays Talk said at the end of game 2 when the Blue Jays won 7-3 over the Pirates. And I know it's not a good idea to take stuff from broadcasters like Jeff Belair, Kevin Barker, and I'm not saying this to be rude to them. I'm actually complimenting Jeff Belair who is host of the weekday series shows for Blue Jays Talk, including the one that runs into the weekend when Shoa Lee will take over with whoever he has on the show. Maybe it's Julia Kreutz, maybe it's Blake Murphy. You never know who he'll have. It will be always on Saturdays and Sunday. Jeff and Kevin will have us, of course, I'm sure, for game number 1 of the Miami Marlins and the Blue Jays as soon as that game goes final. You never know. We'll see what happens when the game starts and when the game finishes. More on that momentarily, but it was an ungodly start for the Blue Jays and the Pirates. Maybe not a ungodly start for the Pirate fans, but definitely an ungodly start for the Blue Jays at 12:35 Eastern. However, the pitching matchups were as follows. For John Schneider, it was Chris Bassett, the Hound on the mound, as us Blue Jay fans like to call it. And for Don Kelly, it was Johan Ovidio, if I'm saying that right. Now, Johan Ovidio, if I'm saying that right, hadn't lost a game, nor had he won a game with the Pirates. So this was his first ever win, as he did with the Pirates managed to win a close game. However, Chris Bassett, on the other hand, his record, besides a 0-0 record with Johan Ovidio, if I'm saying that right. I know I said it the last time, and I might not have said it right. So I'll go with Johan O. I'll go with Johan O in case I said it wrong. He would face Chris Bassett, who has 11 wins with the Blue Jays and 6 straight losses going into the series finale start. Now, did Chris Bassett pick up his 12th win, or did he end up getting his 7th loss of the season? Well, let's dive into that when we are done with the player of the game and top performer of the game for game number 2 of this series. Before we get there, here is your defensive alignment for Don Kelly, the Blue Jays, manager John Schneider, and let's see how they lined up for this ball game. Ronnie Simon in at right field. He will stay in the ball game. Nick Gonzalez in at second base. Brian Reynolds would be a part of the designated hitter time this game. Tommy Pham is back in the order. He'll play left field. Jack S. back in at center field. He'll play at center field. And I believe he was playing center field for the Pirates. Yes, he was playing center field for the Pirates in the 7-3 final, in which the Pirates lost. He would play in center field and bat just after Tommy Pham, who's in left field. Spencer Horwitz is the first baseman. He would bat just after Brian Reynolds. At second base, we would have, of course, Nick Gonzalez. Your catcher for the Pirates in this game was last name Davis. I'm going to see if I can figure. Oh, it was Henry Davis. Henry Davis was back in at catcher, number 32 for the Pirates. So Joey Bart took care of some news for, of course, the Henry Davis. And Henry Davis, of course, was a part of game 1, I believe. The 5-2 victory over the Blue Jays for the Pirates. In at shortstop and with second base and first base, I'll go with LP. So LP was your shortstop. I'll try my very best to say this person's name in the very long run if this guy is just really starting out, and it looks like he is starting out, so we'll be seeing a lot of him throughout the course of the rest of the Major League seasons to come. Tommy Pham, of course, in left field, Jack S. in center field, and of course, Ronnie Simon in right field. Will take on in right field for the Blue Jays defensively Dalton Varsho, Nathan Lukes, and in at left field to start the ball game, though would get pinch hit, would be Davis Schneider. So Davis Schneider would be back to play in. Andres Jimenez gets a start at second base. He would later be pinch run by Miles Straw, who would come in to play left field. Ty France is the first baseman. At second base, was Andres Jimenez just before Davis Schneider went in to play second base. At shortstop, we had Bo Bichette. Our catcher was Alejandro Kirk catching Chris Bassett. And Addison Barger was the third baseman alongside Ty France and Andres Jimenez. George Springer, your designated hitter, to counteract Brian Reynolds. So Reynolds versus Springer in this one. All right, let's dive in to the rest of today's second game, first of the double dose. And that, of course, falls into the 7-3 Blue Jay victory. We're going to go over our player of the game and top performers in a team comparison like matter for this show because we have two games to break down. So first of all, let's start with the team comparisons. For the Blue Jays, we have 7 runs, 10 hits, 2 homers. They touched base 17 times more than the Pittsburgh Pirates, who only touched base 10 times thanks to their 8 hits and their 3 runs. Did not have a single home run, so the Blue Jays scored 2 home runs. The Pirates scored none. The Blue Jays also stole 3 bases, yet both teams, Blue Jays and Pirates, left 7 men on base, 7 men for the Blue Jays and 7 men for the Pirates. Yet they both committed an error. The Blue Jays committed 3 errors in the first game of this 3-game series. That would have been their 4th straight error, and it was their 4th straight error in this ballgame, but this one didn't seem to cost them. I mean, it probably could have if they didn't play it right, which means they would have had to avoid a sweep from the Pirates going into the ungodly start at 12:35 Eastern. That would have been a really tough go, especially knowing you have the off day Thursday. Of course, that is today, August 21st, 2025. And then you begin a series with the Miami Marlins Friday, August 22nd to Saturday, August 23rd. And Sunday, August 24th, both games in Miami. The player of the game and the kicker off of the top performer of the game is the 2-for-4 George Springer with a home run, hit by a pitch, 2 RBIs, and the strikeout. He did steal a base and drive in 2 runs. Alejandro Kirk, on the other hand, had a home run, 3 RBIs, run batted in. He goes 3 for 5. And Max Scherzer, he may have won the game, but he sure had fun doing it. 4 strikeouts, 1 run allowed, 4 hits given up. So the Blue Jays and the Pirates had quite, would you call it an interesting game? For the 7-3 loss to the Blue Jays or a 7-3 victory over the Pirates. The Blue Jays, of course, the victory, the Pirates, the loss. Anyway, you look at it, here's what our records look like for Max Scherzer and Mitch Keller going into their next start. So Max Scherzer is 4-2. He's hoping to go 5-2 probably in his next start, but that may be against a tough opponent. Will it be against the Twins? Who knows? We'll reveal the pitching matchups for the Marlins, time permitting. He finishes this game with an ERA of 3.60, and Mitch Keller finishes with an ERA of 4.34. Of course, earned run average is what ERA stands for, and of course it was a 4.34 run average for Mitch Keller. So that was the ERA for Mitch Keller. No save to talk about in this ball game, but that's okay. We have one more game to break down, and that game, of course, is the game we'll be paying scoreboard attention to as we get to our American League and National League standings update for both divisions between the Pirates division and the Blue Jays division. So the American League East and, of course, the division of which the Pirates are in, where they sit dead last in the National League Central. They are 5th, basically, is what I'm saying. Let's take a look at how Chris Bassett and his opponent, Johan O, I should say, did in this ball game. For the Blue Jays, 1 run, 3 hits, no errors. For the Pirates, 2 runs, 8 hits, no errors. How did this ball game go down in the way it did, with no errors for both teams? Well, let's find out, shall we? This game was as close as you could get. It wasn't 5-2, which was Monday's final score in favor of the Parrot, and it wasn't 7-3 in favor of the Blue Jays, which of course was game 2 of this series, which played out on Tuesday. This was, of course, Wednesday's final score, and it was a small budget number. The Pirates win with a 1-run lead. It's 2-1, and that was all she wrote about this ball game. How did it all happen? Let's go down into our scoring summary for the breakdown. We've already mentioned the scoreline. We're going to get to the pitching records of how that works in just moments. Dennis Santana with the save, his 9th save of the season. So he picks up his 8th and 9th save against the Blue Jays. Interesting. How did it all go down to that? Well, George Springer gets things started with his 21st home run of the season. The Blue Jays go up 1-0. It's a 1-run lead for the Blue Jays in the very first inning of play. Next inning, bottom of the first for the Pirates. Tommy Pham scores his 13th double of the season. Davis Schneider scores. Brian Reynolds scores the play. Spencer Horwitz scores. Davis Schneider is the player to make the play. And with Spencer and Brian scoring, where are the other innings? Well, this one pretty much was decided in the first inning. The Blue Jays had a 1-run lead, and then thanks to a Tommy Pham double, his 13th of the season, by the way, congratulations to Tommy Pham for his 13th double of the season. He scores 2 runs, and that's all you need to say about this inning. Literally, if you look here at the scorecard, look at this. 2-1 after 1 inning, and throughout the entire ball game, leading up to basically the 8th inning, where you figured something would change. It's nothing but zeros on the board. 0 for the 2nd inning, zeros for the 3rd, zeros for the 4th, zeros for the 5th, zeros for the 7th, 6th, and 8th inning. And then, of course, in the 9th inning, only 1 0 on the board for the Blue Jays, as the other 0 will be just an X for the Pirates because we didn't have to play the bottom of the 9th inning. All right, before we take down ourselves into our next break, let's have us a look-see at how every other game besides the Blue Jays and the Pirates in the National League Central played out for Wednesday's contest, in which, at the end of the day, the standings looked like this. For the Blue Jays, 74-54. For the Pirates, of course, their record, 54-74. So that was the Pirates' record heading in to their next series. And speaking of their next series, that series begins Saturday against the Colorado Rockies. It does not look like that series with the Dodgers and the Rockies is over, so they will have to wait until Friday, August 22nd, to play that matchup. Let's have us a look-see at how their divisions did while they were playing in their games to try and see if they could help their division or they could help themselves. We know that the Pirates beat the Blue Jays and therefore win the season series 2 games out of 3. But what else was happening in the Pirates and Blue Jays division? Let's see. We'll start with the American League East scoreboards for Wednesday, and it looks like the Tampa Bay Rays and Yankees first game, or rather last game of that series, had a pretty wild finish with the losing to the Yankees in 10 innings, 6-4. Winning pitcher is David Bednar. Losing pitcher is Pete Fairbanks. His record 4-4. David Bednar's record 4-5. Devin Williams with the 18th save on the season. The 69-57 Yankees prepare for the Tampa Bay Rays, who are on their way to play St. Louis. And that, of course, means that the Red Sox are getting ready to play the New York Yankees. And perhaps those series are starting already, and they might be underway. So the Rays are 61-66, getting ready for their series against St. Louis Cardinals. Meanwhile, the Yankees are 69 and 57, getting ready for their series against the Boston Red Sox, which means at this point, they were only 4 games out of a division spot for the Blue Jays and just 2 games up on the wild card. The Red Sox are only 5 games up on the wild card, but Tampa Bay is knocking on the door, and so is Kansas City, who's just 2.5 out of the wild card. It's pretty clutch time when you think about it. All right, back to the rest of that division. We mentioned the Boston Red Sox for the Blue Jays in the American League East. Let's see how their last series went before they prepared for a battle with the Yankees. Let's see how they prepared. Looks like they had already wrapped up that series that they played with. Doesn't look like they played on the 20th of August. So they must have played on the 19th, the last game. What was that final score? Let's see. I say that because they didn't apparently play on August 20th. As far as the scoreboards are concerned, they weren't playing. So Baltimore ends up finding a way to beat the now 68-59 Red Sox going into August 4-3 in 11 innings. The winning pitcher of that game was Yarnio Cano, or Y Cano, of course, not the letter Y. Oh, yes, the letter Y, Cano. Cano was the last name. I can say that, but I can't say his first name. I'll try my best. His record 2-6, and the record of the losing pitcher, Garrett Whitelock, 5-3. Save goes to Corbin Martin, his second save of the season. And while they were off enjoying an off day, that's pretty much it for the American League East standings. Let's talk about the National League Central, which featured the Pirates, the Cardinals, the Reds, the Angels, and the Cubs. Let's see how those scoreboards did. And I think those guys were playing at the same time the Pirates were with the Blue Jays. So let's see how their matchups went. The Brewers facing the Cubs win it, or kind of win it. The Cubs actually pull off the victory. It's a 4-3 final on August 20th, Wednesday. Of course, that's the time of the game. The Angels beat the Reds 2-1. Winning pitcher is Reed Demeters. Losing pitcher is Graham Ashcraft. The save goes to Luis Garcia, his first of the season. 4-3, the record for Reed Demeters, and Graham Ashcraft's record is now 7-5. The winning pitcher for the Cubbies is Colin Ria. His record 10-5 now on the season. The losing pitcher is Jacob Mizmorinsky. I'm gonna go with Jacob F. His record 4-2, and the save goes to Daniel Palencia, his 15th save of the season. Let's see, who else are we looking at? Oh yes, Cincinnati. We talked about Cincinnati. That was a win that was a loss to the Angels, who of course are in the American League, 2-1. What about the Cardinals? Well, the Cardinals in play. We know the Brewers and Cubs were playing against each other. What about the Cardinals? The Cardinals were indeed playing against Miami of the National League East, and the Cardinals on this day ended up suffering a 6 over the Marlins, with the winning pitcher in Sandy Alcantara. His record now 7-11 is the record. Andre Palanta, his record is now 6-11 with the loss. So he's 6-11 going into his next start, or rather matchup. And that's pretty much how it worked for the American League and National League standings for the National League Central and, of course, the American League East. Now, of course, there are games going on, but we're going to take a timeout and get ready to start putting a bow on this show, because we are getting into that point where all the games tend to matter in different ways. We'll get to a wild card look after we check in on some of the games going on this Thursday, August 21st, 2025 at the time of our recording. But coming up next, It's Game 3's top performers of the game, player of the game, and a player of the game for both Game 2's losing teams, the Blue Jays and the Pirates. Of course, I'm referring to Game 3 as well in losing teams. And that's all coming up when Blue Jays game recap continues. Stay with us on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners. Up next, Game 3's player of the game and top performers of the game. That's next.
Looking for conversations on books and more, as well as tutorials on using your favorite devices and applications? You've come to the right place. Join us weekly on Spicy Techie, where Ali and Sienna provide insightful conversations, as well as useful tips and tricks to help you along on your technological journey. To learn more, tune into the show and like the Spicy Techie Facebook page. Search for Spicy Techie.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
All right, welcome everybody back in the Blue Jays game recap. We are almost at the end of another edition of Blue Jays game recap. Earlier in the show, we recapped game 2 of this 3-game series. If you want to hear game 1's recap, please go and check the link of the description of this episode, and we will have it for you. If you're already caught up to speed, we will have it for you in the description for just, your little enjoyment and say, man, I want to go back on it and have a laugh, have fun with it. Game 2 and Game 3 recapped on this show as part of a double dose. So we have those to work with, and we have one more thing to do with game number 3. We've already done it with game 2 before we took our next break. And that means that in this point of the program, once we're done, the top performers of the 2-1 Pirate final over the Blue Jays, where they end up taking 2 out of 3 of this series. Now we just get to have fun. We get to set up the next series for both teams, the Miami Marlins, and of course, the Rockies, who are the next team of choice for the Pirates. The Blue Jays will be heading over to Miami, and perhaps at the time of our recording, they are already there. I do have some final things to bring up before we touch base on the series with the Pirates. Now, obviously, we know that the Blue Jays will be returning home for a 6-game homestand with the Minnesota Twins and, of course, the Milwaukee Brewers for the weekend. But the X is in town, also known as the CNE. So if you're planning on going to the CNE and a Blue Jays ball game in Toronto, I'd suggest you book your tickets for Blue Jays baseball and, of course, the CNE in advance because tickets go by fast. And I brought the CNE up because I know that can be a little bit of a hassle for those of us who want to go to our sporting event, that is the Blue Jays against the team of conversations I'll re-mention in just moments. But please make sure you have a ride on your way back home. As always, we want to make sure that everyone gets home safely and, of course, drinks responsibly. And for those of us bettors out there, I'm not a betting man. For those of you who bet, remember to bet responsibly. If you gamble, play responsibly. All right, more on that for another show, but I brought that up just in case. Okay, so we went through our National League Central and our American League East division standings update. Got you a little bit of a taste of what is the divisions. That we do have some games going on. I will jump into those games momentarily to get you all up to speed on what's happening. But let's wrap up Bassett versus Johan and the Blue Jays versus Pirates with our top performers of the game and our player of the game. I'll get to the team comparisons after we do the player of the game and the top performer of the game. So let's start out with the player of the game being the 2-for-4 Tommy Pham with a double, a strikeout, and 2 RBIs. The losing pitcher is Chris Bassett, going 5 2/3 inning, allowing 6 hits, 2 runs, but striking out 10 Pirate hitters. Johan with the win goes 5 innings complete, allows 2 hits, strikes out 6 Blue Jays, gives up 1 run. And George Springer, the home run, the walk, the RBI, and a run driven in, 1 for 3 for his day. Those are your player of the game and top performers of the game. We'll get to the Pirates Blue Jay player of the game for game number 3 in this series in just a little moment. We have a couple of things to get there before we get there. Now, Shane Bieber is scheduled to get his first ever major league start with the Blue Jays in as many games of his major league career against Miami. Lauer, fellow pitcher, says he's ready to be flexible and join the rotation when Shane Bieber joins. Of course, he's getting the start against the Miami Marlins pitcher to be named a little bit later. Fan favorite for the Pirates will be inducted into the Pirates Hall of Fame. That's going to be fun. And a clutch learned valuable lesson for humbling Little League loss. So some news coming out of the Little League. All right, let's get to our team comparisons. We got the top performers. We got the player of the game. Game 2's player of the game for the Blue Jays from a Pirates standpoint coming up in just moments from now. Perhaps it's only 5 seconds into that point. And then we, of course, will wrap up the show on the other side with the attendance records for both games. And while we're at it, we will continue to keep a close eye on the action. And a reminder that if you are tuning into Sports for Beginners is 24th episode of Season 4, that we will have you covered. If you're tuning in now to Blue Jays game recap, we will have you covered for the game. Let's wrap this portion of the show up with our team comparisons. As mentioned, the Blue Jays and Pirates had 1 run, 3 hits to 8 hits, 2 runs. The Blue Jays with the only homer of the ball game. They're 13th of this series. They touched base 7 times, left 4 men on base, did not commit a single error, didn't steal a base, but neither did the Pirates, who left 9 men on base and touched base 10 times in this ball game. All right, everyone, we are on to the end of this program. Before we go on the other side, we will get ready to wrap up this series in a nutshell, give you the Pirates series in a nutshell, give you the player of the game for the Blue Jays on the 2-1 Pirate victory over the Blue Jays, which means the records are, as mentioned, 74 and 54 for the Blue Jays, and of course, 54-74 for the Pirates. That's the record for both Blue Jays, first in the American League East, and 5th in the National League Central for the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right. Actually, while we are at the closing moment, we'll save the scoreboard and game 2's Pirate player of the game for the wrap up with the attendance record. Let's go over the Pirates player of the game for the 7-3 loss and get that out of the way. This is game 2's player of the game for the Pirates. And I gotta say, I actually liked Mitch Keller as a player of the game. Yeah, I know he only struck out 4 people. He gave up a run, walked 3 batters, gave up 7 hits, and only went an inning or 3 of a third. So he went 3 1/3 inning. Good. I still think that's a pretty good thing. As far as honorable mentions go, I mean, you really have to give credit where credit is due. So while there was the only RBI by Simon, considering that he had 4 at-bats, had an RBI, but did strike out, did not get in a hit, did not drive in a run. I'll go with Nick Gonzalez with his 2 for 4 day with a run driven in, no RBI. And yeah, I get it, he struck out, but he'll be as close of a player of the game for me with the Pirates as you can get. Once again, both teams committed an error in that game, of which the Blue Jays won 7-3, which of course was Tuesday. Nathan Lukes, his second fielding error of the season. And then, of course, the error to Jared T., his 5th fielding error of the season. We'll get to the attendance records for both games and give you a caught-up analysis of where both teams' standings wildcard-wise are. And we'll check in on this action that's already underway and the games that have gone final. So we'll get you into that on the other side. We are almost at the end of the deal for the Blue Jays and the Pirates. A look at the National League and American League wildcard race, plus the attendance records for Game 1, Game 2 of these series recap, known as Game 2 and Game 3 of this 3-game series between the two teams, plus the series preview for Miami versus Toronto. Next. We'll be right back.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. Blue Jay fans, Bucko fans of all ages, it is time now for the finish line of Pirates and the Blue Jays. Always great to hear from our word friends of Broadcast Map, Sienna T Radio, and of course our stations on the ice and behind the benches, Sports for Beginners. I am Thomas, the host of Blue Jays Game Recap. Here to give you a quick update that the Blue Jays are going to get ready to begin their series with the Miami Marlins. Of course, that series starts Friday, August 22nd, 2025. And of course, it continues on into Sunday when they'll wrap it up against the Miami Marlins. Pitching matchups for the Miami Marlins and Toronto Blue Jays coming right up soon. When we last left, we told you that we'd be breaking down the action that had been going on in Thursday's action, the series that have been going on since they finished their series on Sunday, I should say Wednesday. But with this all in mind, we also have players of the games from Game 2's 7-3 loss for the Pirates over the Blue Jays. The Pirates player of the game. I'll just revamp who that is. And then we'll get to our player of the game for the Blue Jays, who lost 2-1 over the Buccos, otherwise known as the Pirates. We'll do the wild card for the American League and the National League standings update of their race. And then it's time for those of us Blue Jay fans who are staying with the Blue Jays and baseball fans in general who are staying with this show until the end of the season to find out how we're working with Miami Marlins and the Toronto Blue Jays. 3-game series as they present game 4, 5, and 6 of this 6-game road swing for the Blue Jays. I know I said 5 earlier, but that is actually a 6-game road swing, which begins to wrap up Friday, August 22nd, with the 4th game of this 6-game road swing in Miami somewhere tonight. We'll get to the pitching matchups momentarily. Let's dive in to the action that went down on this Thursday, August 21st, 2025 action. We know that the Pirates and the Blue Jays were not in action, but let's see if any of their division teams were in action, and let's see how they did. And just a reminder that if you've missed anything at all in this entire show, we have you covered with timestamps for both platforms that will give you what you missed, and we'll tell you how the divisions work. I should say how the points of this show worked. All right, so when we look at the National League Central, we're looking at teams like the Milwaukee Brewers, the Chicago Cubs, Cincinnati Reds, St. Louis Cardinals. Let's see what Thursday's schedule brought up for the National League. The Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs continued their series, or began a series with each other on Thursday, August 21st. They were probably also wrapping up this series because they don't seem to be playing each other Friday night. So this must have been a 4-game series, and indeed it was. The Cubs are not playing on Friday night, so they are not a part. Yes, they are playing on Friday night. What am I saying? They are playing on Friday night. They're against the Angels. All right, let's get back to their score. The Brewers would beat the Cubs 4-1 on 7 hits and 5 hits for the Cubs. Winning pitcher is Nick Mears. His record 5-3. Shada Amagala, or SI for short, if I'm saying that right. I'll go with SI in case I'm not saying it right. His record, the losing pitcher, 8-6 now. And it is Trevor Megill for the save, his 30th save of the season. Now, what about Cincinnati? Did they play? No, but the St. Louis Cardinals did play. They played a series with the Tampa Bay Rays, and it was the Tampa Bay Rays fighting hard, but 2 errors probably cost them this game as they lose it to the Cardinals, 7-4. Cardinals record heading into today, if they are playing today, on Friday, as of our time of this recording, is now 64-65. Tampa Bay's record 61-67, heading into the second game of this series. I believe it's the second game of the series. This could have been the beginning of a new series for the Cardinals and the Rays, which got started on Thursday. And speaking of the Tampa Bay Rays, as per the Pirates division, the Cincinnati Reds the only team ideal for Thursday besides the Pirates. The American League East teams, Boston and the New York Yankees, went to battle, but it was 4 errors at Yankee Stadium that send the Boston Red Sox to a 6-3 final over the now 69-58 New York Yankees. And for the Boston Red Sox, they improved to 69-59, with the winning pitcher being Greg W., his record 5-4. The losing pitcher is Luke Weaver, his record 3-4, and Aroldis Chapman with the save of the season. Speaking of the AL East opponents, with Boston and New York playing each other and Tampa Bay playing the Cardinals, the Orioles will take on one of the Blue Jays' leaders in the American League East, and that's none other than the Houston Astros, which series continues today, who are currently, as they come into today, 70-58. The record getting into it, I believe, was 69 58. I could be wrong. The Orioles record, 59 and now 68. That was originally 59 and 67. They lose 7-2 to the Astros, committing 2 errors on 9 hits to the 12 hits for the Astros and the 1 error committed by the Astros. Winning pitcher is Alexander. His record 4-1. Losing pitcher is Brendan Young. His record 1-7. That, of course, is Jason Alexander, who is 4-1 right now on the season. 7-1. He is on the L list for the Orioles. All right. There were some other games to get to, but we have to talk about the wild card race. So let's talk about the wild card race right now, and then we will get into our Game 3 player of the game, and I'll revamp the Pirates player of the game of this series for the 7-3 victory from the Blue Jays, 7-3 loss, Pirates, and I'll give you the Pirate player of the game plus the Blue Jay player of the game for the 2-1 Blue Jay loss, 2-1 victory for the Pirates. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, knowing this is the end of the program, here is how both leagues stand up. Here's how both leagues stand up in the standings compared to the wild card. If we look here right now, here's how they stand up. The Blue Jays are currently in second place right now in the American League leaders list. So it's not all bad news yet, Blue Jay fans. It's not all bad news yet. There's still the wild card, but we want to stay in the leaders. So it's not all bad news yet. In first place in the American League leaders, while we're on the topic, is the Detroit Tigers at 76-53, with the Tigers beginning a series against the Kansas City Royals, and the Miami Marlins, of course, beginning a series with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Astros continue a series with the Baltimore Orioles and currently sit third in the American League leaders. But the Yankees, just being 1.5 games up on the wild card race, with the Boston Red Sox 1 game up on the wild card race, have a way of probably finding a way to get into the Blue Jays East Division side. Now, you look at it however you want to look at it, but if you look at it from the standings point, and I'm going to be real honest here, the division is still up for grabs. That's going to piss some of you off, I'm sure. No, saying that would be strong. That's going to get some of you anxious. There, I'll use anxious as the better word. That's going to get some of you anxious, and I know it's a little scary. We are getting down to the wire, though, so a lot can happen still. Seattle is currently in the third final wildcard spot at 68-60. They continue a series with the Athletics of Sacramento, or just Athletics, whatever you want to call them. And speaking of that race, right now the White Sox are at the bottom of the barrel, just 22.5 out of the wild card race at 45-82. They begin a series with the 58-69 Minnesota Twins, who are just 9.5 out of the wild card race. So 9.5 out of the wild card race. Currently on a 3-game losing streak right now. Seattle is playing the Athletics, who are currently on a 3-game winning streak, but the Athletics are seeing a team that's on the L train of 5 games. So the Athletics are hoping to keep that L train going for Seattle, as they are only 9.5 games, just like the Minnesota Twins, out of the wild card race. 8.5 games out of the wild card race is the Baltimore Orioles. Remember I said divisions like these could change, and wild card races are no different. Baltimore is 59-68. This is supposed to be a team that will make a surprising push to the postseason. Well, it's crunch time right now. And will they make it there? Maybe they will get close, but they might not get there. But we'll see. We will see, Baltimore. We will see. Tampa Bay on a 4-game losing streak right now is 61 and 67. They, of course, are against the St. Louis Cardinals, and they are 7 games out of the wild card race right now. 7.0 games out of the wild card race. They have 7 games out. The Angels, on the other hand, are just 6.5 out of the wild card race at 61 and 66. If you look at it from Texas, they're only 5.5 games out of the wild card range. 5.5 out of that wild card race does seem like a bit of an issue for those who are in the wild card spots right now. And Texas is only 63 and 66. They are in a series with the 64 and 62 Cleveland Guardians, who are only 3 games out of the wild card race for the American League. Behind them, at the top of the barrel, you have the 66 and 62 Kansas City Royals, who are just 2 games out of the wild card race and on the 1-game winning streak, compared to the Athletics, who are on a 3-game winning streak right now, hoping to make it 4 against the now current 3rd place wild card spot, Seattle Mariners. So it's a pretty tight race in the American League. Let's see if it's any tighter in the National League. Let's see where the National League race is. The Rockies are clearly out of it. They're 30.5 games out of the wild card race, sitting at 37 and 91 wins, 91 losses, I should say. So 37-91, yeah, that does not seem very, very good for the Rockies. However, I've said it on this show before, and I will continue to say it until it is indeed no chance for the Rockies. Don't lose hope, Colorado, right now. While we may be in crunch time, there is the possibility of you going on a winning streak and finding ways to move up the ladder. You got to win your games. The same could be said for the 15 games out, 52 and 75 Washington Nationals, who are against the Philadelphia Phillies, who currently sit at their per seed record of 74-53. In the leader spot between the Dodgers and the Milwaukee Brewers, who are 80 and 48, and the Dodgers are 73 and 55. So it's a pretty tight race right now in the National League leaders side of the division. But is it tight enough in the wild card? Now 5.5 games up on the wild card spot, we have the Chicago Cubs sitting at 73-55. At around plus 4.5, we have the San Diego Padres, who at one point in this season, probably during that Dodgers series, were bouncing between leader and second place. They're at 72 wins and 56 losses, currently in the second wild card spot. And speaking of the Dodgers, that is the series they continue today. The New York Mets, on the other hand, will have their hands full as they take on the Atlanta Braves with a 67-60 record for themselves. And the Atlanta Braves, well, the Atlanta Braves are at 58 and 69, just 9 games out of the wild card race. The Pirates, 54 and 74, are just 13.5 out of the wild card race right now. And their next opponent is the bottom of the barrel, the Rockies. The Atlanta Braves, they're at the top of the barrel, going to face off against the 3rd place wild card spot, New York Mets, despite being 9 games out. 7 games out, and against Toronto tonight is the 60 and 67 Miami Marlins, and they are hoping to keep their winnings going, but they currently sit at a 1-game winning streak. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Braves sit at a 2-game winning streak. Also at a 2-game winning streak is the Washington Nationals, and of course the Pittsburgh Pirates are on a 1-game winning streak as well as the Miami Marlins are. Only 6.5 back of this wild card race, 6.5 to be precise, and 2-8 in their last 10 games is the San Francisco Giants, who are the only team with a 3-game losing streak as of right now, and they are in a series with the Milwaukee Brewers, who are making a case in the National League with 80 wins and 48 losses, and basically the entire MLB, that if you put them down and they continuously win after you put them down, they're not a team that you can just mess around with. No, they're a team that you can say, I have to beat this team, but you have to find a way to beat them. I made the question to some people off of this airwaves, and I'll just propose it to you guys, the listeners, because I feel like it's a great conversation. When the Brewers had a huge winning streak, up to 13, and then of course 14 before they began to lose their first ever game after 14 straight wins. I made the case of an argument where I said, I wonder how many games Blue Jays fans and baseball fans in general it would take Milwaukee before they came to face the Blue Jays in Toronto. Well, the answer was 14, but let me know what you guys think. Will they end up getting close to at least 10 games? They're on 1-game winning streak right now. Will they be able to take care of business against San Francisco and then get ready for their next opponent that comes before the Blue Jays? I don't know, but I like their chances. Let me know what you guys think. Cincinnati Reds currently 5 games out of the wild card race, 0.5 games out of the wild card race. So they're basically there, 67 wins and 61 loss. They have 61 losses and 67 wins. Currently on a 1-game losing streak. They are against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are on a 2-game winning streak right now, 62 and 66, just 5.5 games out of the wild card race. And playing against Tampa Bay right now in a series against Tampa Bay is the 64-65, 4 games out of a wild card race, St. Louis Cardinals, who at home are currently 35 and 30 in their last couple of games, 29 and 35 on the road, and against 500 teams, it's pretty evenly matched. It's 34 and 40. This could be a tough test for Tampa Bay, especially given where they're at in the American League wildcard race. So yes, it's still pretty tight. It's still a pretty tight race, everybody, for both the American League and the National League. But we are getting down to the wire. And if you missed it on one of the other Blue Jay game recaps, if you missed it, please, I encourage you to go back into one of the shows where I brought out, just as we were wrapping up the show, that the postseason schedule was out. And if I recall correctly, the first and second place American League leaders have the ADLS, the division, as the first game for their chances in the postseason. If I have said that right. All right, we've got to get to our pitching matchup and we got to get to our attendance records. So let's start with the revamp of the game 2 of this 3-game series, Pirate Player of the Game. And that, of course, for me, was Mitch Keller. But I gave some love to Nick Gonzalez, and I also gave some love to Simon. Now, I might have said somebody else, but I think Nick Gonzalez will be a close second favorite for the player of the game. My player of the game, though, is Mitch Keller. Despite the loss, I think he had a pretty good day. The strikeouts could have been more than just 4, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. He does give up 7 hits and only goes 3 1/3 of an inning. So yeah, not a good night for him, but still pretty worth mentioning. He is your Pirates player of the game for the Blue Jays' 7-3 victory over the Pittsburgh Pirates, which of course was Tuesday, and of course Wednesday was that ungodly start time of, you know, the timeline. I'll just give it back up to you. 12:35 Eastern, 11:35 a.m. Central, and of course the rest of the times speak for themselves. The Pirates and the Blue Jays are done with a series against each other now, time for the Blue Jays and the Pirates to meet their next opponents, the Rockies for the Pirates and the Blue Jays with the Marlins. We're getting down to it, folks. Only a couple more games left to play in August, and then it's all hands on deck in September. Can you believe it? It feels like April was a couple of months ago. And by the way, there's no more stopping. It's go, go, go from here on out, which means everybody's playing. You'll have your off days, of course, but everyone is playing. All right, our Blue Jays player of the game coming up in just 5 minutes from now. But first, and we will do this as we sign off, we'll reveal the attendance records. The Blue Jays lose to the Pirates in the series finale, the rubber match, as many would call it, in front of an attendance record of 14,019 fans in attendance. 14,019 fans in attendance for game number 3 of this 3-game series. And then, of course, game 2 of this 3-game series, in which the Blue Jays hammered, They hammered the Pirates, 7-3. They and Mitch Keller, the Pirates, lose to the Blue Jays in front of an attendance record of 14,284 fans in attendance. 2 fans in attendance, I should say. So that's 14,282 fans in attendance for that game. All right, time now to get to the close down. And here we go. Your Blue Jays player of the game after the Blue Jays lost 2-1 in front of an attendance record of 14,019 fans in attendance on Wednesday is none other than George Springer. Why did I say Springer? Well, look at it. 3 at-bats, a hit, an RBI, a run. Yes, he walked, and yes, of course, he struck out. But within those 3 at-bats, he always had something to show for. He had a single to drive in a run, probably. Oh, and yes, he hit that only home run of the game for the Blue Jays because it was 2-1. But if we're thinking about honorable mentions, I think it's a great idea to say that Chris Bassett would be an honorable mention, despite the fact that literally everything but the first inning was nothing but zeros on the board. I mean, literally, nothing but zeros. We went over the scorecard, and let me just prove the point while we went over the scorecard. It was 8 hits Pirates, 3 hits Blue Jays, 0 errors Blue Jays, 0 errors Pirates. 2 runs Pirates, and 2 runs Blue Jays. 1 run Blue Jays. No matter how you slice it, the Blue Jays fought hard in this game, but it feels like the Pirates fought harder. This series was by no means an interesting one to watch against both teams. However, it was also quite entertaining. I mean, look, you had night 1, the Pirates take a win, 5-2 the final score. That was Monday. Tuesday, you had the Blue Jays, 7-3 winners over the Pirates. So our series is even. 1 game, 2 aside, but we need to find out a series winner. Let's play at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and decide who wins the series, Pirates or Blue Jays. In the end, 2-1 loss for the Blue Jays and a 2-1 victory for the Pirates. I mean, can you really say anything? It's not like we committed errors in the ball game, which we didn't. We did commit errors in some of the ball game, but the Blue Jays committed 3 errors in night 1's game. And then, of course, in the second night's game, they committed 1 error, but so did the Pirates. So, really, the better team was the Pirates in this entire series. Now, that seems like a lot of, the word I will probably use off the air. That seems like a lot of the words you shouldn't be saying if in a negative way. But the reality and positive thing is that we get to do it all over again against the Miami Marlins. And for us Pirate fans, we get to do it all over again against the Colorado Rockies. It's going to be fun. That's the beauty of this baseball season. You have teams who get to do things every single day, and they don't have to worry about traveling to another area when they could just do it in a series. Okay, you play 3 games, we'll play 3 games in our area. That's the beauty of the baseball season. in my opinion. With the players of the game for Game 2 and Game 3 out of the way, it's time now for the finish of the show. We've already got you up to speed on the action, and now for the first time in over 507 days since April of last year, he's back. Shane Bieber is on the hill for the Blue Jays, and he's not alone. The Miami Marlins will send out to face him the 7-5 Ryan Gusto on the hill. So it'll be a righty versus righty matchup. Sounds fair enough. And speaking of righty versus righty, it should be noted that Shane Bieber and the Blue Jays are meeting for the first time as a team, not as opponents. Shane Bieber has not pitched a single game in over 570 days, so this will be a fun one. 507 days. Wow, that is a long time. And you got to remember, he was on Tommy John surgery, so he's coming off of that. So am I expecting a win from Shane Bieber? No. Am I expecting a great outing from Shane Bieber? Absolutely. Am I expecting the Blue Jays to win? Am I expecting the Blue Jays to win against the Marlins with Shane Bieber on the mound? Maybe, maybe not, but I am expecting a great series out of them, and I'm hoping that we get it, which brings me to our closing point of the program. Blue Jays game recap. We'll be covering the Marlins series with the Blue Jays, the teams you now see behind me. However, will we be covering all 3 games in one total recap? No, we will be covering Game 1, Game 2, and Game 3 in separate recaps. And be sure to check out this entire series, the Pirates series as well, in a Blue Jays weekly recap show provided on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, and maybe somewhere down the road on the ice and behind the benches. You never know. So that is your pitching matchup, ladies and gentlemen. It is Shane Bieber versus Ryan Gusto on the hill for the opening match between the Miami Marlins and John Schneider with the Blue Jays. Sure to be a fun one, sure to have a lot of excitement, and sure to be a very good series. Meanwhile, the Pirates, on the other hand, and Don Kelly, if he's still the manager by this next series, are against the Colorado Rockies, and they don't have an off day until going on the road to Baltimore, and then in between their next homestand against the Chicago Cubs and the Athletics of Sacramento, or just the Athletics, whatever you want to call them. And that will also be their final homestand of the season. So, yeah, fans, if you thought we were pausing and letting it sink into you, yeah, that's what I'm going to do right now. And look, it seems terrifying, but in the end, we know that these teams are here to do a job, and that's win the World Series or find a way to look at some wrongs and right them for next season. The Blue Jays have not won a World Series since 1992 and the 1993 years. They have come close to getting close to a division title, which now they have a chance to do, but the season is still very early and it's getting down to the wire. I know saying very early is thinking it's back in April, but we are in August, folks. And right now there is, as Bo Bichette said on one of the previous editions of Blair and Barker when he was on, there is no excuses at this point. Teams have to get ready to treat every game like it's the last game they'll play in this season. And I'm saying that for the teams that are in the postseason, most likely. For the Rockies and the Pirates, their series begins at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:40 p.m. Central Time, 4:40 p.m. Mountain Time, 3:40 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're listening to this on Friday or Saturday, as it continues at 6:40 Eastern time Saturday on the 23rd, is without a doubt going to be a fun series, I'm sure. And it is the wrap up of one of the two other homestands the Pirates have in this series of the 2025 MLB season. Their final season road stand is between Baltimore and Washington Nationals. So speaking like it's the last one they'll play in the season, they'll head over to Cincinnati one last time before closing out their season in Atlanta on the weekend of September 28. So we are getting down to the wire, everybody. Things are getting strange and they're getting very interesting. It's a tight race, but you never know. A couple of big wins could spark big change in the race for so many teams. Is this the end of the Pirates season? Is this the end of a team that's at the very bottom of the barrel? Probably, but you can't lose hope just yet. You know the team is trying everything in their power to win ball games. So, with that being said, if you've enjoyed this Pirates recap, thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed every recap that Blue Jays Game Recap has provided to you, thank you very much for keeping it locked in. And we will see you for the Miami Marlins and the Blue Jays 3-game series, which starts tonight at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:10 p.m. Central Time, 5:10 p.m. Mountain Time, 3:10 p.m. Pacific Time, but really 4:10 p.m. Pacific. So here you go. It's Shane Bieber and Ryan Gusto. It's going to be a fun series. It's going to be a fun matchup. I can't wait to see what comes out of it. And I know Pirate fans are just waiting for that official final piece of the puzzle. So here we go. It is for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Braxton Ashcraft getting the Pirates started in this 3-game series. Meanwhile, their opponent will be Antonio S., who is 4-14, hoping to make it 5-14 with a win over the Pirates. Braxton Ashcraft is 3-2 on the season. He's hoping to make it 4 on the season with a win over the Rockies. Is there any hope left in the tank for either of these teams? Who knows? But we will see how the rest of the baseball season plays out. For now, let's eavesdrop on the Pirates and the Blue Jays in this 3-game series finale in which the Blue Jays took 1 out of 3. The Pirates took 2 out of 3 and win the series, beating the Blue Jays by scores of 5-2 on Monday and 2-1 on Wednesday. Final score for the Blue Jays only victory occurred on Tuesday at 7-3. And now the Blue Jays face the Marlins. The Pirates, on the other hand, face the Rockies. Be sure to keep it locked in on Sports for Beginners and on the ice and behind the benches when we get them to you for Blue Jays Game Recap. And stay tuned to the end of Miami Marlins baseball with Blue Jays baseball as we determine how the final couple of road stands for Blue Jays Game Recap will be and give you future announcements for if there will be a postseason run with Blue Jays Game Recap. My name is Thomas. My full name, of course, is Thomas Ruger. I am the host of Blue Jays Game Recap, but please call me Thomas, and I will see you all after Game 1 of the Miami Marlins and the Toronto Blue Jays series. Once again, the pitching matchups. Shane Bieber, after 507 days on Tommy John surgery and away from the major leagues, makes his MLB debut with the Blue Jays, and he'll take on, for the Marlins, Ryan Gusto at 7-5 on the season. Will he be 8-5 on the season? Or will Shane Bieber collect his first win in the major leagues after a long road back? Who knows? We'll see you then. Lights up, let's go Blue Jays, and we'll see you all after Marlins and Blue Jays on the next Blue Jays game recap. Enjoy, everyone, your week. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time. Thank you so much for listening to the On the Ice and Behind the Benches post-game show on the Sports for Beginners podcast feed. Remember, everybody on the Ice and Behind the Benches, to join Thomas every Tuesday for weekly episodes of your favorite ice content, from the drop of the puck to hitting the showers. We thank you for joining us.